Toxic people aren't intimidated by loud voices or aggressive words. They're intimidated by something far more unsettling: emotional control. You see, manipulation only works when it gets a reaction. Anger, defensiveness, over-explaining. The moment you stop feeding that cycle, the balance of power quietly shifts. This video is not about fighting back. It's not about proving a point or trying to dominate anyone. It's about mastering silent behaviors, subtle actions rooted in emotional intelligence that make toxic people lose influence, lose leverage, and eventually lose interest. When you stop reacting the way they expect, when you move calmly instead of emotionally, when you no longer explain, chase, or seek validation, something uncomfortable happens for them. They can't read you. They can't control you. And that's when fear replaces confidence. Today, you'll learn 7 silent behaviors that protect your peace and quietly establish psychological strength, without saying a word. If you value self-control over chaos, stay with me. 1. Silent behavior. You stop explaining yourself. Toxic people survive on one thing more than anything else: your explanations. They ask questions that aren't meant to understand you. They're meant to pull you into justification. Why did you say that? What do you mean by that? So you're saying I'm wrong? At first, you think you're being mature. You think you're clearing misunderstandings. You think that if you just explain yourself one more time, things will settle. But with toxic people, explanations are not bridges. They are handles. Every extra word you give them becomes something they can twist, reframe, or use against you. And this is where emotional intelligence begins. Emotionally intelligent people understand a simple truth: not everything needs a defense. The moment you stop explaining yourself unnecessarily, something powerful happens. The dynamic shifts. Because toxic people expect resistance. They expect emotion. They expect you to scramble to be understood. When that doesn't happen, their confidence cracks. Silence, in this case, is not avoidance. It's authority. Psychologically speaking, over-explaining signals a lower position in the interaction. It subconsciously communicates, "I need you to approve my reasoning." Toxic people sense this instantly, and they lean in harder. But when you answer briefly, when you state your position once and then stop talking, you remove their leverage. You're no longer playing defense. You're standing still. And stillness is deeply unsettling to someone who relies on control. This doesn't mean being rude or dismissive. It means being contained. For example, instead of, "I didn't mean it like that. What I was trying to say was," you say, "That's my decision." And you stop. Instead of, "Let me explain why I did that," you say, "I'm comfortable with my choice." And you let the silence do the rest. Toxic people hate this because silence gives them nothing to attack. No emotion, no justification, no opening. Their usual tactics fail. And when tactics fail, fear replaces confidence. Here's the deeper reason this works. Toxic behavior thrives on engagement, not logic. They don't want resolution. They want reaction. When you stop explaining yourself, you cut off their emotional supply. You're no longer participating in their game, and without a game, they lose their power. This is why emotionally intelligent people often appear hard to read. Not because they're secretive, but because they don't overshare their inner world with unsafe people. They speak when necessary. They stop when clarity has been given. And they're perfectly comfortable letting others sit with discomfort. Here's a simple rule you can apply immediately. If you've already stated your position once, clearly and calmly, anything beyond that is no longer communication. It's negotiation. And you don't negotiate your boundaries with people who disrespect them. So the next time a toxic person pushes you to explain, justify, or defend yourself, pause. Give a short answer. Then stop. Let the silence stretch. you'll notice something interesting. They become restless. They repeat themselves. They escalate. That's not strength on their part. That's loss of control. Remember this line and live by it. Clarity needs no defense. When you stop explaining yourself, you don't become weaker. You become unreadable. And unreadable people are the ones toxic personalities fear most. 2. Silent behavior. Number 2, you don't react emotionally. Toxic people are experts at one thing: emotional provocation. They poke, they criticize, they use sarcasm, guilt, or subtle disrespect, all with one goal in mind: to pull you out of your center. Because the moment you react emotionally, they win. Anger gives them power. Defensiveness gives them control. Overreaction gives them proof that they're inside your head. Emotional intelligence begins where impulsive reaction ends. When you don't react the way they expect, their entire strategy collapses. Think about it. A toxic person throws a comment designed to sting. They're waiting for a response: raised voice, sharp tone, justification, visible discomfort. But instead, you stay calm. Your face stays neutral. Your voice stays steady. No argument, no explanation, no emotional spike. Psychologically, this creates a problem for them. Their brain expects feedback. Without it, they experience uncertainty. And uncertainty is deeply uncomfortable for controlling personalities. This is why calm people feel intimidating, not because they're aggressive, but because they're unpredictable in the best way. Toxic individuals rely on emotional patterns. They know how most people react. They plan their next move based on that reaction. When you remove emotion from the exchange, you remove their roadmap. This doesn't mean suppressing emotions. It means choosing when and where emotions are expressed. Emotionally intelligent people feel deeply. They just don't leak those emotions to unsafe people. Here's what non-reaction looks like in practice. Someone tries to provoke you with criticism. You respond with, "I see it differently," and you stop. Someone tries to guilt you. You respond with, "I'm comfortable with my decision," and you don't explain further. No edge, no defensiveness, no emotional charge. To a toxic person, this is terrifying. Why? Because emotional reactions are currency, and you've just gone bankrupt on purpose. They may escalate. They may repeat themselves louder. They may accuse you of being cold or distant. That accusation is a confession. It means their usual tools aren't working. Here's the deeper psychological layer. When you stay calm under pressure, you signal internal authority. You show that your emotional state is self-governed, not outsourced, not negotiable. And people who rely on control fear nothing more than someone they cannot destabilize. This is why emotional discipline is one of the highest forms of power. You're not ignoring them. You're not submitting. You're simply refusing to give them access to your nervous system. A simple rule to remember: if someone benefits from your emotional reaction, they don't deserve it. Pause before responding. Breathe slowly. Lower your voice, not raise it. The calmer you become, the more exposed their behavior looks. And eventually, they stop trying. Because manipulation without reaction is manipulation without reward. Remember this: calm is not weakness. Calm is psychological dominance. When you stop reacting emotionally, you don't just protect your peace. You quietly become the person toxic people cannot control, and therefore cannot stand. 3. Silent behavior. 3. You observe patterns, not words. Toxic people are often very good with words. They know how to sound sincere. They know how to apologize convincingly. They know how to promise change at exactly the right moment. But emotional intelligence teaches a rule that never fails. Words are cheap. Patterns are expensive. Toxic individuals manipulate through language, not consistency. They explain, they justify, they charm, and when their behavior is questioned, they talk more. This is where most people get trapped. They argue with words instead of evaluating behavior. A psychologically strong person does the opposite. They listen, quietly. They watch, patiently. And they measure patterns over time. Not what was said once, not what was promised emotionally, but what repeats. If someone disrespects you, apologizes, and then disrespects you again, that's not a mistake. That's a pattern. If someone disappears, returns with excuses, then disappears again, that's not confusion. That's a pattern, and patterns tell the truth. Words are designed to hide. Toxic people fear this kind of awareness because it removes their greatest weapon, plausible deniability. As long as you debate words, they can shift narratives. As long as you argue intentions, they can play innocent. But when you stop reacting verbally and start observing behavior, their leverage evaporates. Here's the psychological shift that happens. You move from participant to evaluator. And evaluators are dangerous to manipulators. Because you're no longer asking, "Why did you say that?" You're asking, "Why does this keep happening?" That question doesn't require confrontation. It requires distance and memory. Emotionally intelligent people keep quiet records, not to attack later, but to see clearly now. They understand that 3 repetitions reveal character. Once is an anomaly, twice is coincidence, 3 times is identity. And when identity becomes clear, action becomes simple. Notice this. When toxic people realize you're no longer moved by their words, they become uneasy. They'll say things like, "You're overthinking," "You're too sensitive," "You're misinterpreting." Those statements are not explanations, they're distractions. Because someone who knows their behavior is clean has no fear of patterns being examined. Silence here is power. You don't announce that you're watching, you don't accuse, you don't debate. You simply adjust how much access they have to you. Less information, less emotional availability, less engagement. And that quiet withdrawal does more than any argument ever could. Here's a simple practice to sharpen this skill. For the next interaction with someone who feels toxic, don't respond immediately. Observe what happens after their words. Do actions align, or do excuses replace effort? Write nothing, say nothing, just notice. Clarity comes fast when you stop interrupting it with hope. Remember this line: patterns don't lie, words do. When you train yourself to see behavior instead of listening for reassurance, you become very difficult to manipulate, because manipulation requires confusion, and observation destroys confusion. This is why toxic people fear emotionally intelligent silence. Not because you confront them, but because you finally see them. And once someone is truly seen, their power disappears. 4. Silent behavior. 4. You set boundaries without announcing them. One of the most unsettling things for toxic people is not confrontation, it's unannounced change. They expect warnings, they expect explanations, they expect emotional speeches before you draw a line. Because announcements give them time to negotiate, manipulate, or guilt you back into old patterns. Emotionally intelligent people do the opposite. They don't declare boundaries, they live them. No dramatic statements, no long messages, no "we need to talk," just a quiet shift in behavior. You reply less, you disengage sooner, you leave conversations that feel disrespectful, you stop making yourself endlessly available, and you don't explain why. This is deeply destabilizing to toxic individuals. Why? Because boundaries that are spoken can be argued with. Boundaries that are embodied cannot. Psychologically, toxic people rely on predictability. They know which buttons to press, how far to push, when you'll cave. When your behavior changes without explanation, their internal map breaks. They don't know where the line is anymore. and that uncertainty creates fear. Most people think boundaries require confrontation. They don't. Boundaries require consistency. For example, instead of saying, "I don't like how you talk to me," you calmly end the interaction when disrespect appears. Instead of saying, "You're crossing my boundary," you reduce access. Instead of explaining why you're distant, you simply are. This isn't passive-aggressive, it's emotionally mature. You're not punishing, you're protecting. Toxic people often react strongly to this shift. They may accuse you of changing, they may escalate emotionally, they may try to provoke a reaction to regain control. That reaction is confirmation. Healthy people respect boundaries. Toxic people challenge them, and silence during that challenge is what makes them uneasy. Here's the key psychological principle at work. People who rely on manipulation need verbal access to maintain power. When you remove explanations, you remove access. You're no longer asking permission to protect your peace. You're simply doing it. This is why emotional intelligence isn't loud. It's precise. A calm exit from a conversation says more than 1,000 arguments. A delayed response says more than any justification. A consistent pattern of self-respect speaks for itself. Try this simple boundary practice. For the next week, do not announce any boundary. Instead, notice where your energy drains and quietly step back. No commentary, no warnings, no emotional framing, just action. You'll notice something important. People who respect you will adapt. People who used to benefit from crossing your boundaries will panic. That panic is not your responsibility. Remember this line: boundaries spoken are negotiable. Boundaries lived are final. When you stop explaining your limits and start enforcing them through calm action, toxic people lose their grip. Because the scariest thing to someone who thrives on control is realizing they no longer have access to you, and they never saw it coming. 5. Silent behavior. 5. You become predictably calm. Toxic people feed on emotional chaos, confusion, tension, ups and downs. They feel powerful when situations are unstable, because instability makes people reactive, impulsive, and easy to control. That's why one of the most threatening things you can become is predictably calm, not passive, not indifferent, calm. When your tone doesn't change, when your mood isn't hijacked, when your behavior stays steady no matter what they do. To a toxic person, this feels like losing gravity. They provoke, you don't spike. They criticize, you don't flinch. They escalate, you slow down, and suddenly, they're the only one exposed. Psychologically, toxic individuals rely on emotional leverage. They push buttons to create reactions, then steer the situation using the emotional fallout. But calm breaks that loop. When you respond the same way every time, grounded, measured, unbothered, there's nothing to grab onto. No leverage, no fuel. This is why calm people feel hard to deal with to toxic personalities. Not because they're difficult, but because they're unmovable. Predictable calm signals inner authority. It says, my emotional state is not up for negotiation. And people who thrive on control fear nothing more than someone who cannot be shaken. Here's an important distinction. Calm is not emotional numbness. Calm is emotional regulation. You still feel irritation. You still notice disrespect. You just don't leak it outward. You decide when and if a response is necessary. Toxic people often react strongly to this. They may say, "Why are you so cold? Why don't you care anymore? What's wrong with you?" Those questions are not concern, they're panic, because calm removes their advantage. When chaos no longer works, they don't know how to engage. Here's how to practice predictable calm in real situations. Slow your speech instead of speeding up. Lower your voice instead of raising it. Reduce words instead of adding more. Calm is communicated through rhythm, not arguments. Over time, something interesting happens. Toxic people either escalate desperately or they retreat. Both outcomes are wins. Escalation exposes them. Retreat protects you. This is why emotional intelligence is quiet power. You don't need to confront. You don't need to dominate. You don't need to explain. You simply become emotionally stable and let instability reveal itself. Remember this line. Calm is psychological dominance. Not because it intimidates, but because it removes every tool toxic people rely on. When you are predictably calm, they cannot read you, cannot rush you, cannot control you. And without control, their fear begins. 6. Silent behavior. Marker 6. You don't seek validation. Toxic people crave one thing more than control itself. Validation. Not healthy recognition, but proof that they still matter in your inner world. They want to know, did that comment affect you? Did their silence bother you? Did their approval still mean something? The moment you stop seeking validation, something profound happens. Their power collapses. Emotionally intelligent people don't look outward to confirm their worth. They don't need agreement to feel stable. They don't need to be understood to remain confident. And to a toxic person, this is terrifying. Why? Because validation is the currency of manipulation. If they can make you doubt yourself, they can make you chase reassurance. But when you approve of yourself first, quietly, internally, they lose leverage. You stop asking, do you think I did the right thing? Was that okay? Am I wrong here? Instead, you decide. This doesn't make you arrogant, it makes you self-governed. Toxic people sense this immediately. They'll test it by withholding approval, by acting unimpressed, by subtly dismissing your choices. They're watching closely to see if you flinch. When you don't, fear creeps in. Because someone who doesn't need validation cannot be controlled through shame, guilt, or praise. Here's the psychology beneath it. People who rely on external validation hand over authority to whoever gives or withholds it. People who validate themselves remove that authority completely. That's why emotionally intelligent individuals rarely explain their decisions. They don't seek permission. They don't defend their self-worth. They act and stand by it calmly. This doesn't mean you ignore feedback. It means feedback doesn't define you. There's a difference. Toxic people confuse those two on purpose. They frame criticism as honesty and approval as love. But both are tools when used conditionally. When you stop reacting to either, when praise doesn't inflate you and criticism doesn't shrink you, you become unreadable. And unreadable people are dangerous to manipulators. Here's a simple internal practice to build this. Before speaking or acting, ask yourself, would I still choose this if no one approved? If the answer is yes, proceed calmly. If the answer is no, pause. That question alone rewires how you move through interactions. Over time, toxic people realize something unsettling. They can't motivate you with praise. They can't punish you with disapproval. And without those levers, they have nothing left. This is why emotional independence is quiet power. You don't announce it, you don't prove it, you simply live it. Remember this line: the one who needs nothing controls everything. When you stop seeking validation, you stop orbiting other people's opinions. You stand at your center, and from that place, toxic people feel it clearly. They no longer matter enough to move you. That realization is what makes them step back or step away entirely. Either way, you keep your peace. 7. Silent behavior. For 7, you walk away without drama. Nothing unsettles a toxic person more than this: your ability to leave quietly. No confrontation, no emotional speech, no final message explaining how they hurt you. just distance, clean, calm, and irreversible. Toxic people expect drama. They expect anger, tears, accusations, or long explanations. Because drama gives them something to work with. It keeps them relevant. It keeps the connection alive, even if it's painful. When you walk away without drama, you deny them all of that. Psychologically, this is devastating to someone who thrives on control. Why? Because silence removes their role. No villain, no victim, no audience, just absence. Emotionally intelligent people understand something most don't. Closure is not something you receive, it's something you decide. You don't need the last word. You don't need them to understand. You don't need validation for your exit. You simply stop participating. This doesn't mean blocking impulsively or disappearing out of spite. It means withdrawing with intention. You stop initiating contact. You stop responding to bait. You stop explaining your absence. And you do it without emotional leakage. To a toxic person, this feels like losing oxygen. They may try one last provocation, one last guilt trip, one last attempt to pull you back into reaction. If you respond emotionally, the door reopens. If you don't, the door closes permanently. Here's the key distinction. Walking away in anger keeps you connected. Walking away in calm makes you unreachable. And unreachability is what toxic people fear most, because it means they no longer matter enough to disturb your inner state. This kind of exit communicates strength without words. It says, I saw enough. I chose myself. I don't need to announce it. Silence here is not avoidance, it's completion. A mature exit doesn't explain, it concludes. And once you leave without drama, something powerful happens. You reclaim your time, you reclaim your mental space, you reclaim your identity. Toxic people sense this loss immediately. Not because you said anything, but because you stopped reacting. Remember this line: nothing terrifies manipulation more than irrelevance. When you walk away quietly, you don't just protect your peace, you end the cycle. And that, more than any argument, boundary, or confrontation, is what finally makes toxic people step back. Silence is strength, toxic. People are not afraid of loud voices. They're afraid of people they can't control. Today, you've learned 7 silent behaviors that shift power without conflict. You stop explaining yourself. You don't react emotionally. You observe patterns, not words. You live boundaries instead of announcing them. You remain predictably calm. You stop seeking validation. And when necessary, you walk away without drama. None of these behaviors are aggressive. None of them are loud. They are rooted in emotional intelligence, self-control, and clarity. Silence, when chosen consciously, is not weakness. It is discipline. And discipline is what toxic people can't manipulate. You don't need to intimidate. You don't need to prove anything. You don't need to fight. You simply become grounded and let your absence, your calm, and your boundaries speak. If this resonated, take a moment to reflect. Which behavior do you need to practice most? Comment below. Silence is my power. And if you value calm strength over chaos, subscribe for more. Stay centered, stay unreadable, stay free.